Hey guys, Ace Ginger here, and welcome to the final part of my 4-part series about how to use the elements of building in your Minecraft Medieval City. The first 3 parts were atmosphere, purpose, and style, and this last part will be covering detail. Now, before I start here though, I need to just say detail ended up actually being more or less of not quite its own category. It's actually more a combination of the 3 things, and if I had a chance to do it again, I would actually incorporate detail, bits and pieces of how to use detail into the other 3 videos, but I'm just going to use it as a single category, and you know, we'll just go from there. But anyways, basically detail is well, 3 things I would say. It's how much texture there is in an area. So for an example, you know, if it's just a straight wooden wall, let's just say there's just a massive wooden wall that just goes straight across my screen right now, and it was just all wood planks, nothing else, just straight, then that's not got very much texture, as I will say. It's just very bland and you know, it's not very nice. But you know, if you have a variety of stairs and shapes and things, then that'll add a lot of texture. An example of that, great example of that actually, is tall grass on grass. I'm going to talk about more of that later. But another part of detail is how much time and effort you put in. That's one of the main parts as well. So good detail will give the audience the impression that you worked really hard on it, and I'll also talk about that shortly. And the last part is how well you can apply the other 3 elements of building into one area. So since I'm going to be using detail as its own category, I'm mostly going to use it in the sense that it's going to be the combination of the 3 other things. So those will be linked in the description, so you may watch those, of course. But yeah. Okay, so I guess I'll just say, first of all, detail is very important because oftentimes, even if your build isn't like the nicest looking build ever, and there are always builds like that, but if you throw in lots of detail, put little good detail in it, it'll make a person who's viewing it think that you put a lot of time and effort into it, and hopefully you did. You know, you can sometimes fake it, but you know, if they see that you put lots of time and effort into whatever you've done, even if they don't necessarily like some of your aesthetic choices, they might respect it more and therefore also like build more, just because you spent the time to put some detail into it. Now, some of the masters of detail get so good at detail they don't have to spend the time, but those people are usually pretty rare, and you know, maybe, well, I don't know, but you know, generally speaking though, you know, if you put lots of stuff everywhere and randomization and staircases and stuff that's not just blocky, then generally you'll have you know, more detail and people will respect it more. Not everyone, but most people. But anyways, yeah. So a great way to add detail, at least in my opinion, especially to stuff like grass, is well, tall grass. This kind of grass right here, I personally think that I probably overuse it a little bit, but I pretty much use this on everything. You know, sometimes it doesn't make sense, but the reason I use it anyways is because I like the texture. It doesn't, you know, it's not a block. It's not a, you know, it's different, and it adds character. Like if I'm looking at this mountain that has lots of grass on it, it looks like it doesn't look quite as blocky. It looks more like, you know, an actual nature terrain and stuff. But if you look at this hill that I haven't done that to yet, it doesn't look quite as nice. Now, I tend to apply that logic to other things like, you know, just general roads and stuff in general, and maybe I shouldn't do that as much, but like this to me is just like, that's just so blank compared to something like this hill, which has lots of tall grass. So tall grass is a great way of adding texture. Another great way to add texture and stuff is just any non-cubular shape in general. So cubular, I don't know if that's a word actually. Cubular, we'll go with it. So like I guess that would mean half slabs or stairs, or just, well, really anything, even like these iron bars or glass panes or anything that's just not a cube, because Minecraft is based off cubes. Now, I mean, that kind of goes contrary to what some people will say, you know, they like having cubes because that's what Minecraft's built on. You got to embrace that. Well, yes, but you also, you know, if you don't use some of the half slabs and staircase blocks, you can't really accomplish all that much without building very, very big. So, yeah, you know, if I use blocks on these roofs instead of stairs, it just would not work. So, you know, that's just a great way also of adding texture and things. That's a great example of detail and stuff. Like these fence posts are also nice as well because they're not cubes. So that's basically the main point with detail and stuff. You know, you can certainly use cubes and things to add detail, of course, but you know, it's a little bit, you know, I would just say if you don't understand detail very well, then that's what I would start from, just non-cubular objects. Okay, Let's see here. I'm just going to talk about how it really kind of combines the other parts of this series. But I guess it's really about combining the other three parts in the right amounts and, you know, in harmony with one another. You know, not using only one thing or too much or too little of something. You know. But yeah, so like a great example of a detail, let's just say, would be, you know, just a vine up a tower to create atmosphere. You know, that sort of thing. That's a really great way of making atmosphere, but it's also a detail. You know, this is why I think that they overlap quite a bit, especially right here. But that's just a detail, and you know, that really creates atmosphere as well. So you know, another thing that will create purpose, this important detail really, is you know, something as simple as like this anvil, this blacksmith. I sort of thought of this earlier, but you know, just by placing an anvil here, you kind of know that it's a blacksmith, and that really gives this whole place purpose. But just think though for a second how big this anvil is. It's very small, and there's 2 anvils here, I think. If I counted right, there's exactly 2 anvils. That's not very many. That does not fill up. What the heck? That does not fill up much space. So that makes it a detail. That's another part of the definition of detail, as I'm gonna say. You know, it doesn't fill up a lot of space. It's just a little asset. It's a little tiny thing, really. So the little tiny stuff are the details. But yeah, you know, another thing, style-wise, even we could go, you know, say a detail would be taking the time to think, oh, I should use the same color scheme for, I don't know, flags and flowers. You know, I can use the same color scheme for flags and flowers, and that's a detail there. You know, but that's a huge part of style. I love doing that, keeping the flowers and flags similar. That's just a personal thing, but you know, that's a good example of that though. Style, but that's detail because it's a very small thing. You know, the colors of the flags. You don't think about that necessarily when you're building, or well, not when you're building. Sorry, when you're viewing. But you know, that's a detail for that reason. But yeah. So along with that though, details are really the things that your eye doesn't necessarily catch or focus on. You know, but without detail, the whole creation is just less aesthetically appealing in general. I keep mispronouncing that. But yeah, so you know, if you think about that for a second, you know, maybe the torches catch your eye right here is what I would say because they're moving. But you know, the details of this build would be like, say, this tall grass, or say, you know, the randomization in this house roof and stuff, and maybe perhaps the atmosphere that this tree creates over this road right here. You know, that was specifically placed there to provide that purpose. But yeah, so like, you know, even though maybe your eyes are drawn to the torches, and you know, I'm not using default torches because they look so stupid in my opinion, but like, you know, the details are the parts that you don't notice, I guess, is where I'm going with that. But you know, without these details, this whole building wouldn't look right, even if your eyes are drawn to the torches. So that's just an important thing to consider. Yeah, I guess right along with that, really, like, I guess I'm just gonna say, you know, to go a little modern here, a giant skyscraper that's only made of blocks. It's just huge, and you know, pretty much one color, just pretty much like a real skyscraper. Sure, you'll be realistic, but it's not gonna look very nice, and that's just the reality, you know. I guess I don't totally know a lot about that stuff, so I don't want to say too much about that because I'm a medieval builder. But you know, that's not going to be that nice, and you're going to think, well, this is huge, but it's not that quality. Now, if you have a simple little cottage, let's just say, you know, with a small garden next to it, and you know, some trees. Sorry, I just stopped flying for no reason. And you know, stuff like that. That just makes it look so much better. Even if it's smaller, it definitely took less time, but you just put tons of detail, truckloads of detail even, into this little area. It'll just create so much more atmosphere, and it'll just be so much nicer than just this giant thing. That's another thing with detail, really. You know, you think about details. You know, if you create something that's huge and you just fill it with detail, it will be incredible. It will be wonderful. It will be awesome. But detail takes a lot of time, and you know, people who spend so much time building these huge things, you know, it's honestly better to build small and put detail into it than it is to build huge things, in my opinion. But that's just the way I am. So, but that's a point of detail, though. If you want to get really good at detail, it's ideal to start from small things, and if you want to build something big, then you know how to use the detail. You know, but yeah. Another way to create detail is to, you know, using style and stuff to really vary the colors and keep interest in everything. So what I mean by that is like, you know, for example, like this wall over here. You know, it's got oak in it, but it's also got stone brick, and it's also even got a little bit of hint of cobblestone and smooth stone on the top. You know, so that's a lot of different colors right there. You know, you can make slightly different combinations throughout your stuff, or you can use the same ones. It depends on really the mood and what you're going for stylistically. But you know, that adds a lot compared to whether, if let's just say this is all just oak logs. Just all oak logs might be more realistic, depending on how you interpret the game. But it just, why would you do that? It doesn't look right. So you know, that's just an example. That's not my favorite wall right there, but it's right there, so it's a nice one to use, I suppose. But yeah, so I guess an example of purpose through detail would be, well, you know, the crates on the side of streets that I put everywhere. I guess, for example, like this crate over here. If this wasn't there, the whole place would probably be fine. And if I didn't put these everywhere, it'd probably be fine. But just having these here adds a lot of purpose in it, in my opinion. It just really, you know, adds a lot, I think. And it's a detail, though. It's a small thing, you know. Like I said, this would be fine without this. But, you know, if you take away one element of detail, oftentimes things are going to be fine. But if you take away too much detail, it's gone. That's why it's a detail, because it's not necessarily the most important thing. So that's why I mentioned the crates, because I could easily remove them, but I think that it adds a lot to have them there. You know, and when you have lots of things that add up like that, you know, it creates some cool stuff. So yeah, I guess, lighting. That's a really big category that I'm not going to talk a lot about, but it's a really important way of drawing contrast to create detail. I should probably do a separate video explaining lighting. That's not really an element of building. That's just a thing. But you know, it's just really important to be able to use lighting correctly. I mean, I'm in the daytime right now, but especially if you like looking at things in the night, or if your build is meant to be viewed in the night, or if it's just, you know, built for both purposes or whatever, it's very important to make sure that you plan out the lighting. You know, if nothing else, plan it so that, you know, you've got lighting in a specific certain area. And you know, stuff like street lamps are always nice, but you know, just do not put torches everywhere. That's a huge pet peeve of mine. I hate when people just throw torches everywhere so that everything's lit up. No, don't do that. But yeah, okay. I guess I probably have stayed away from this for too long now in this video, but randomization is just, I can just go off about that, and detail is probably the best of the four elements that involve randomization. But I'm pretty sure towards the end of every single video I've talked about randomization a little bit. But randomization, you know, especially of roads, is just the best example of detail versus no detail. Randomized roads are just much more atmospheric, because they feel it makes things feel run down, and it makes things feel, you know, like you're actually, you know, immersed in something. And they also add a lot more style, because, you know, your randomization style and what gradients you use and things just really adds a lot. There goes my phone. But it just really adds a lot to everything around it, in my opinion. It's just one of the most critical things that not everyone likes, I guess. But also, it even generates purpose, like I talked about in the purpose episode. I really have talked about this in all the episodes, but it even generates purpose, because you can say, oh, this is a blacksmith, so there's certain kinds of stone over there. Or, oh, this is a main road, so there's this kind of stone. And that goes hand in hand with style, because each person's going to have different blocks set as different things. But if you look at a town long enough, or even really for a little bit, you can kind of figure out what signifies what. So, you know, that really gives you an opportunity to have a unique you know, style and approach to how you use roads. That can add extra style to personalized style to really everything. So that's really important as well. But yeah, I guess randomizing is also, back to the beginning of the video, you know, it just gives people the impression that you worked harder than just placing blocks, and that you actually put some thought into things, you know. You know, if you took the time to randomize stuff, or to, you know, throw cracked stone bricks and stuff, I don't see any right now, or yeah, there's one right there. But you know, if you take the time to do that, people will just know that you have spent the time and you've worked harder, and that you've really thought about what you want to do, and you know, realistic stuff, and you just thought more about it than just placing down blocks. Essentially, is where I'm going. So you know, that's really important. And you know, you might say, well, why is it important that people know that you thought about things? Why does that actually matter? Aren't people just going to judge it about you know, what it looks like? Well, the answer to that question is yes, they're going to judge it based on what it looks like. And if it looks like it doesn't have very much detail, they're going to assume that you are either lazy or you're not a good builder, and then they're not going to approve of not only your build, but you as a builder in general. Psychologically speaking, not everyone is like that, but that is most people are going to respect something more if there was more effort put into it. At least the way I see things. That's just a great life principle, really. Just put effort into everything, you know. But yeah. So really, I don't know if this episode ran short or not, but I'm pretty much done. That's all I've got for detail. It's, like I said, not the biggest category. It might not even be worthy of being its own category, but, you know, we did it, so yeah. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video, and thanks for watching this series in general. I really did enjoy doing this, and, you know, putting this stuff into words really has actually helped me, you know, think more about this, you know, better too, because it just helps you really visualize what you want to do. And, you know, I don't know, I feel like even I've gotten better just by talking about this stuff. So I hope that I've helped some people, you know, or taught some people some things. And, you know, but yeah, leave me some comments in the feedback. Leave me some feedback in the comments about, you know, next series, if you've got any ideas or just what you thought of this series, because I might do stuff like this again. And, you know, just tell me if you have any other things that you wanted me to teach that I never got around to in this series, or just if there's any stuff that you've got for me. But yeah, so thank you for watching, everyone. Have a great day. I hope you've really enjoyed the series, and, you know, we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.